Hello, everyone watching on YouTube and listening on Spotify. It's another episode of NRG Insights. And at the moment, we're halfway through our Rising Stars episode, which is again I kind of discuss this on everyone, but the basics is for this is that we all know there's a massive problem with bringing in the new blood into the industry and the next generation of talent. So I thought rather than just talking to us old dinosaurs all the time, I thought I'd bring in some new people from the industry, talk about their challenges, how they got in, and maybe benefit some of us in regards to how we kind of recruit and how we get to attract people in. So today I've got Will Calito from Magnet Capital. Thanks for joining me, Will.
No worries. Good to speak to you, Marcus.
Yes, and you obviously came highly recommended. I think you were the most
About
voted.
5 people put my name
I
down.
know, 5 people for Rising Stars. Impressive. So tell people kind of your journey into what you're doing now at Magnet as BDM.
So it was a bit of a random, like I wasn't looking to be a BDM, and I was never, to be honest, I didn't even know this industry existed. Like I was working at my estate agency job in West London, and it was a really bad experience for the last 6 months.
Hmm.
Like really, really, really bad corporate estate agency. And I remember being on the phone to a recruiter about a different job. It was for Knight Frank in West London. It
Yeah,
was like, for an agent, one of the top jobs that you can really look at
yeah.
going for. And then he started talking to me about like the job here at Magnet and about BDM, short-term finance. And I'll never forget, I was in the park near where the office was, walking round and round in circles, thinking, you mean I'm getting paid to go for coffee and getting paid to go for lunch?
Don't tell
It
me it's
sounds
that easy.
way
It's slightly more
too good
technical.
to be true. And I'll never forget that because I was like, what's the catch?
Mm,
Like, it sounds too good because it fitted with everything that I thought I'd do good at and enjoy in work.
yeah,
Like for me, business is just that old-fashioned face-to-face relationship. That is, to me, is what I'm good at and what, doesn't really, I wouldn't class it as work.
yeah, yeah,
And I was like, okay, this sounds really bloody good. And then I actually left that job with no other job actually at the time. So I just kind of took the punt and handed my notice then. And then yeah, when I came in here, met the guys at Magnet, Sam and Ashley, really liked what they were doing. I liked that it was a new kind of younger company with awards and they were trying to grow.
yeah.
So I saw that as a real opportunity to kind of step into a company that's growing and then work my way up within that, learn the ropes, and then kind of go from there. But it was definitely the most random, wasn't looking for it.
I
It
mean,
just
no one chooses financial services. I don't think. I think we all fall into it.
No, and that's definitely something which, the more people I've met and more time I've spent in the industry, I've realised is that people have come into it very randomly, not looking for it. And I think that's brought and made it quite an eclectic mix of people.
Hmm.
Like, when I meet developers, clients, other lenders and brokers,
Hmm.
you do see a real mix of people from literally every kind of background, walk of life, experience. And I think that's what makes it just a really fun industry to be in, because you
Yeah.
never know who you're going to be speaking to. Like one time it's a guy my age or girl my age that just got into it, and the next day you're talking to a 70-year-old broker that's been doing it since day dot.
Yeah.
So you've got that whole variation, and that to me is I really enjoy it. I just like meeting different people
Yeah, and
and
like I said, you're highly regarded in a short space of time. How do we get that across to people who aren't in? Because you don't know that until you join, right? And I think we've always come
well,
across this problem just about financial services, like being fun, being the fact that it's an eclectic bunch. It's not just white middle-aged men, which there is still a lot of. But
I mean it's majority white middle-aged men. I'm
it
not gonna
is,
lie.
but I mean, it's
That's
slightly different.
thousand.
It's changing quite dramatically from the time that I've been in it. But it's very hard to get that across to like the younger generation because it's hard to make it that interesting in comparison to into other sectors. But what do you think we could do to help?
I think there's a real not a mix, sorry, but there's a real difference in your kind of general finance bro that
Mm,
everyone automatically thinks of,
yeah.
your finance industry or private equity investment banking. That's just always what people initially think of when you say the word
Good
finance.
school, blue gilet, the standard.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not got your shuffle on, then you're no good to anyone. But short-term finance is just the complete opposite. It's not really about, the letters after your name. It's not about what school you've gone to and, what degrees you've got. I've got no college degree, no university degree, and the majority of people don't have that.
Hmm.
And so I think like the short-term aspect of finance is very different.
Yeah.
And I think where it's so relationship based, it's just about relationships in this industry. I'll be working and I'll be doing loads of maths and I'll be like, oh, bloody hell, I've got a headache. Maths is not what we do. It's relationships. And I think actually, when it comes to this space, it's just about, actually we're not here to do numbers, we're not here to do the finance side of it. It really is relationships.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably quite a key difference between, the go-to finance that we think of. That's
Even
what
that side, even if you go down the investment banking side, which is very different, that is still a relationship-driven market, right? There's still that
Yeah.
element to it. Obviously, I think BDMs, I think you've done it down, like, you still understand numbers, right? You still understand if you can do a
Yeah.
deal, you still understand the technical side, but I do understand that people want to buy from you. I don't think you had as many people requesting you to come on as you would have just because you understand numbers. You just come on because they can see
No.
that you are, you're moving forward in the industry, right?
And I think that's probably the big thing in this space is like actually it's not about, I'm a BDM, so this is my job. I think actually where it's such a, I mean, yes, we're a small company anyway, but generally where we're a small industry, actually it's about we've all got the job to do. It doesn't matter if you're a surveyor, solicitor, broker, client, or BDM. The end goal is to get that deal or project funded.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's just putting and pulling everything together to get that done. So yes, there's maths in it. Yes, there's a lot of, for me, construction element, and risk as obviously the lending side. But actually, it's just about getting it done. And I think that's probably also what the best bit of being a BDM is, my job is not sitting and doing 100 calls every day like it was when I was an agent.
Yeah.
One day it's out playing golf, the next time it is doing a really detailed appraisal, going through the numbers, going through, pages and pages of IMS reports. But it's just at the end of the day getting that deal done,
Yeah.
which I really like. There's always something else that you can pull together.
Yeah. I mean, the variation, again, it's getting across that as well. I think that we all have very varied jobs. Banking or however we want to call it, finance is not just the same thing day in, day out. I think people can think it's quite
No, no,
monotonous.
no.
I mean, you've been quite blessed that you've come in at BDM level because most of the people that I speak to about this, most of it is about working your way through the ranks. But you've kind of skipped a step, haven't you? From I suppose you did your time in a state agency. What's the relevance between what you were doing before and now? Do you think that did put you in good stead?
Yeah, I think obviously, I mean, the reason why I took the job in a estate agency was just to understand the property market in more detail. Because I come from a
Yeah.
kind of development background, my uncle's a developer. And so property and development has always been what I've wanted to do. And I think it just I mean, in hindsight now, obviously nearly 2 years on and looking back, the agency gave me that hard skin, the salesy kind of approach, which I've definitely unraveled slightly, and I'm way less salesy now than I used to be. But I think just the little aspects of everything pulling together makes makes me able to be a BDM.
Yeah.
I had my own business before, completely separate and not in this industry. So I just think, pulling everything that I've done together has enabled me to just kind of hit the
That's
ground
what you
running,
do.
really.
And how important is that? I mean, you mentioned like I mean, you didn't use the word, but resilience when you're a state agency side of things has obviously put you in good stead now. Very difficult to build that up. Like for young people to explain that, like you do get told no's quite a lot, and our industry, your industry, it's very hard to build that up without kind of explaining to someone that it's difficult. I mean, how do you kind of build that up in young people? You clearly had it done because you worked in something you weren't enjoying, and also it was a tough gig, right? But
Yeah.
resilience, I think, is number one in financial services. I think without it, you are it's too hard a job. But how do you build that without having the experience? It's difficult, isn't it?
I think for me, it's very much like, I'm in everything for the long game. So, it's not really about the short-term wins. It really is about, where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? And actually, everything that's happening day to day here and now, you do kind of look over.
Yeah.
And also, maybe it's just my character, when I used to be an agent and people would be like, no, I don't want to buy it, I'm very to the point and very direct. So for me, it's quite easy. I'm like, well, you can't afford anything better. So if you don't want it, fine, it's not my problem,
Yeah.
So I just think having a really kind of real approach to everything makes such a big difference.
Yeah, do you know what? Just to jump in, I know you've mentioned this only because everyone in this Rising Star one has mentioned it about the long game, about not being in it for the short term, and I don't think you guys realise that you are a step above perhaps some of a lot of your peers, because I speak to hundreds of people every day, and a lot of those are in the same generation as you, and there's so much on short-term gratification at the moment, and I don't think that's their fault. I think it's the social media world we grow up in.
Yeah,
But having that long perspective on things is actually, it does put you above your peers. I don't, that it's a generational thing where you see short-term wins because that's what we're built on, right? People earning money in a short
that's
space of
what you're
time.
getting gratification for at the end of the day.
But you
But I
see
think,
that, right? You see the long-term goal as the real win. You understand that not everything's going to happen right now.
no, and it's like, I'm very, very critical of myself. And so I'm always being told, like, shut up, stop complaining, you're 22, you're doing really well. And I'm like, yeah, I know I'm doing well for my age, it's not about that. But why just because I'm 22 should I not be at this point in my life? Or why can't I do this? Because, I know I'm going to get there. It's not if, it's just when.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think that's also the big thing is, I'm very confident that I know kind of what trajectory I'm going on. So it's just a case of doing all the little steps every day. So you'll just get to that point naturally. So it's not, you're not
Do you know what?
worried
It's
so
really
much about
interesting.
right now.
Sorry, jump in. So it's really interesting because I interviewed a guy this morning for me, just a general coffee chat. And he's similar age to you, and I was trying to find. This probably helps me a little bit. But he's very, very driven. He's moved up very quickly in his industry. 21, great guy. And my concern was that if you're so driven, you don't understand how hard this job is and how long it takes to get there. But what you're saying there is quite right. You can be really driven, but you still understand that long term. Do you know what I mean? I don't think they're mutually exclusive. That clears up in my mind a bit. There's nothing wrong with being super driven, but also
Yeah.
being smart enough to know that it takes a while to get there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, as long as you know that everything's not coming right now, then, that's fine. I mean, don't get me wrong, I am always frustrated with myself and I'm always like, why are you not at this point yet? Or why are you not doing these kind of things? But ultimately, at the end of the day, I know like these small things don't really matter. It's just keeping doing what I'm doing and I'll get to that point at some point. Hopefully sooner rather than later, but
Yeah, I still want
I
it now.
appreciate I want it tomorrow, of course, but I
Yeah,
still
yeah.
appreciate that actually, you have to put the foundations in. And what I'm always really, really cautious about is I don't ever want to come across arrogant, but it's really easy
hmm
at kind of this stage to come across arrogant because, you might think, I think I know what I'm on about. I generally do, but I know naturally I've not got the experience that you get from time.
Yeah.
And so it is a real fine balance because
Actually,
you've
interested in
got to
that. Sorry to
appreciate
jump in,
that.
but how do you combat that? How do you combat that with like older brokers who've been in it a long time to kind of to gain their respect? How do you think, as a young person, you break those barriers?
Do you know what? It's always about understanding like your position. Like the amount of brokers that I've met who have been, top of their game. And I mean, for the most of them, I've actually gone and I've gone, there's nothing I'm going to tell you that you don't already know. This
Yeah.
is our offering and this is our product. And then I'd quite quickly just spin the conversation into, what can you tell me? When you're sat in front of someone that's been in the industry for 30 years, there's nothing you're going to tell them that they're not going to know, really. So actually, I'm just like, well, I'm taking this opportunity to get every bit of information I can out of you of how to do really well. And it was like I went for a coffee with another lender recently, the owner of another development and bridging lender. And the whole purpose of that meeting was literally just to cipher off all of his tips, all of his experience to, take it on board and get me further. And so I just think, you've got to appreciate your position, which I definitely understand. Um, so yeah, I'll always get their 2 pence on what I can.
Yeah, and you know what? That is another trait. Again, you do it, so you don't see it that that's an exceptional trait, but it's a trait of everyone I'm speaking to in this who has been asked to come on by their peers in regards to being ahead of their game. You're always learning, right? You're always taking it on board.
Yeah.
Like, you haven't got the arrogance of going, "Look, I know what I'm doing. I know the industry," or that kind of thing. You're constantly learning. And you don't see it because you're not surrounded by people your age. That's why we have these conversations. But it is an exceptional trait to have as a young person, to always want to be like, what's next, and what don't I know, and kind of learning everything.
I think for me, and it's probably a very shallow, probably isn't the right word, but I want to be the best out of whoever I'm around.
Yeah.
That's not something which I take lightly. As if I'm
Yeah,
doing
that's not
something,
shallow, by the way.
I
That's
want to
not
be the
like,
best.
the journey to get there doing the right thing is not at all. It's wanting to be the best at what you do is a great trait to have.
Yeah, yeah, hope so.
Either that, Richard. I don't know because I'm the same. But yeah, so on the learning side of things, what advice can you give to people who are either just starting out in the industry or trying to break it out into it? What kind of advice can you give, that something that you've done that's helped you on your way, that's got you kind of further up the ladder quite quicker?
Be confident. Be really confident. It's very easy when you're walking into a room that are full of people much more experienced, much more knowledgeable, much older. Naturally it's quite a daunting experience.
Hmm.
But I think the biggest thing is be confident and ask. If you don't understand, ask for help. People in this industry are very, very good at, giving you guidance and being mentors. Like, I definitely say I've got a few mentors of, lenders, brokers that are just, by the by, if I need something, they're there and they will always support me on, day to day. And I just think, you've got to ask people for that. People aren't going to naturally turn around and go, let me mentor you. But actually, if you just break that ice and build on that relationship, they're so valuable to have. Um,
And do you know what?
they're,
That's at any age as well, because I still have them. And most of my mentors don't know they're my mentors. Most of them are my friends, but there's probably 10 people that
yeah,
if I've got a problem, there are 10 people in my phone book who I know I will call, and they will either resolve it or give me some good advice,
yeah,
and they have
exactly.
done throughout my career. So the mentorship thing, people are a bit scared of it, I think, when you're younger, because you kind of, and it is an honour, by the way, if someone asks you to be a mentor, so don't feel that you can't. But I don't ask people; they don't know. Like, they're just,
No,
these are the
no, I
people
just,
that I obtain my most information from.
yeah. But I just think that's, it's such a big thing, and, the industry's big enough for everyone to, have their own bag of business. It's not
Hmm.
ever stepping on anyone's toes, but small enough that everyone knows everyone, and, you're only ever one person away from someone you want to speak to.
Yeah.
So actually, and that's another thing, your network. Having a strong network of people that you can trust and work with, again, is so invaluable.
What about these people
Um,
that are trying to come in at the moment, like trying to be where you were a couple of years ago? Like, how do they even start that? What's the initial process, you think, of kind of breaking in? Because being confident in everything is great, but some people don't even know how to get there. And this is more interesting for people like us at this end of the market that are trying to attract those
Is
clients.
this where you want your little sales pitch? Contact NRG for all
No, I'm not, it's
needs.
not that. I mean, that
Other
is important.
recruiters are available.
No, obviously speaking to recruiters is important. That's what, it's part of my job. But
Yeah.
how do they, just generally, what recommendation would you be? And I won't keep you much longer, but I'm just trying to get to the bones of, like, when you first start out, what recommendations can you give to people that maybe, like, the characteristics or the skill set they need to work on to get in, to get. Oh, sorry, my fire alarm. I'll mute you a minute. 'Cause my fire alarm's going off. That was great. That just right at the end.
That's a nice little.
Did you pick up on that? That was a good. Okay. Now, so what? So just kind of final question. What recommendation can you give to someone, whether it be like a character they need to work on, a skill set they need to work on, just to break in, to start that initial process into financial services?
I think you've got to do your background research first and foremost. That's a big thing, is you need to understand what industry you're going into. You know, it's not going to be for everyone, but it is an awesome industry to be in. So I think you just need to get a bit of a flavour for it. And I think, you know, for me, that was something that I did, you know, when I started hearing about short-term finance, dev finance, go and look into it. Go and just watch some YouTube videos about it. Just understand surface level what it is you're getting into. Like for me, once I did that kind of initial bit of research, I was like, right, when do I start? But for some people, it might not be it. You know, on the BDM front, there's a lot of driving. You've got to be out for coffee all the time, meeting all sorts of people. So like, just do your research into it. Understand what kind of companies are out there. Find what niche you have. You know, development might not be for everyone. It's very, you know, it gets quite granular, and you need to have a real understanding of the whole process. Because that's it at the end of the day, you know, being a BDM, you can't just be a sales guy. You can sell a product to anyone, you know, that's not it, but you have to be passionate behind what you're selling.
Yeah.
And that's something which, you know, for me is easy, but for some people it might not be. So you just got to find your niche. It might be, you know, you might like cars, so go into asset finance. You might be a, you know, farm guy, go into asset finance or rural finance. There's always like, there's so many little niches within it.
Yeah.
And I think if you find your niche, you'll do tenfold better.
Yeah.
And I think
if you do something you're passionate about, it comes across, doesn't it? It's so much easier.
You know, it's easy to sell. I used to be an agent. I used to sell the crappiest flats, making them out that they're the best buys in the world, you know? But if you're passionate about something, you know, you're not doing that hard sell, and it's just so much easier to kind of get that across to your clients as well.
Amazing. Thank you, mate. I appreciate that. I appreciate your time. Hopefully that sheds some light on some of the things that we've been talking about in the background about, you know, how we do kind of attract the next level of people, and the characteristics that we should be looking for, as opposed to experience, because, you know, we're not going to be able to pull people in with 5 years experience that are 20 years old. So we're constantly come across that problem. So I do appreciate your time. And thank you everyone for listening. So all of Will's socials will be on our socials. But what's the best way of getting hold of you, Will, if someone just wants to pick up the phone and have a chat with you, or message you and have a chat with you?
LinkedIn. I love a bit of LinkedIn. I'm all over LinkedIn. Drop me a LinkedIn message. And all my numbers on there anyway. So my
it'll all be on our socials. But thank you very much for your time, and thank you everyone for listening. I'll speak to you soon, Will. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Marcus. See you later.
Cheers, bye.